I wanted to take this opportunity to use this as a teaching or at least as some sort of a training for believers. You know, one of the reasons why I think we don't see as much healing is because we give up too soon. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to give just some practical tips that we have found that have been very helpful when it comes to praying for the sick. Establish a starting point. This is really important. Before you start praying for someone, ask them if they're praying for pain, ask them what their pain level is. Most people understand the 1 to 10 scale. If 10 was the highest and 0 was no pain, where would you rate your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? Also, if you're praying for mobility, try to find a starting point. Let's say you're praying for someone who has a shoulder issue and they can't lift their shoulder or their arm above maybe shoulder height. Try to establish some sort of starting point. That way you can see the progression as you pray. When you do pray, speak to the condition. Now, we see this in the healing ministry of Jesus. Jesus told blind eyes to see. He told deaf ears to be open. The man with the withered hand, he said, stretch forth your hand. He told lame legs to walk. So when you pray, use the power and the authority given to you by Jesus as a believer to speak to the condition. So if you're speaking to pain, speak directly to the pain and the location and command it to leave. Take authority over it in Jesus' name. If there's any trauma that's happened, take authority over trauma. If you're praying for mobility, pray and command the mobility to increase. If you're speaking to a disc or a physical problem of that sort, command the disc to move back into place. You get the point. Have a check-in. After you pray for them, ask them if they notice any difference or if the pain or the condition is about the same. Now, encourage them not to be nice to you just for the sake of being nice to you, because nobody wants to tell you that your prayers didn't work, right? But tell them and encourage honesty. Say, please be honest with me. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm just trying to get a gauge for if we notice any improvement since we prayed. That's very important. You know, even Jesus did that whenever he prayed for the blind man. He said, what do you see? When you do notice any increase in improvements or any increase in mobility or any decrease in pain, be sure and thank God for the progression. No matter how big or how little, thank God for what he's doing. Because if you notice pain going down or mobility increasing, that means that God is moving. Even if the slightest little bit, let's say they start off on an 8 and they go to a 7.5 or a 7, we still want to thank God for what he's doing. Because again, that means that God is in the process of working. Pray again if necessary. This, again, I think is so key to why we don't see more healing, because we give up too soon. Now, I know there's different theologies on this, but you know, even Jesus prayed for a blind guy twice. Now, I personally think that that shows that Jesus was operating out of his humanity and not out of his divinity, right? But even Jesus in his healing ministry prayed for a blind guy twice. If you remember, he prayed for him and then he said, what do you see? That was the check-in part, right? Let me know how things are going. And the man said, I see men like trees. And Jesus prayed again. All right, friends, I hope that these 5 practical tips to see more healing are helpful to you. Feel free to comment in the box below. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed.